All right. I have before me the two of some of the most coveted tents in the world, in the ultralight backpacking world right now. And let me show you what they are. If I can figure out how to turn things around on this phone. In the right corner, we have the Zpacks Duplex. This is the sort of golden standard. It's been the de facto standard for ultralight backpacking for quite a while. Many attempts have been made to better this tent, and there have been some really interesting tries. It weighs 19.4 ounces. It's a DCF tent. It has 2 doors, and it's pretty much been the choice for thru hikers of the PCT, the CDT, and probably the AT also. Over in the left corner, we have the new Durston X-Mid 1 Pro. This tent is DCF on the fly, but the floor is actually, it's either sil poly or sil nylon. I'm thinking it's 15D sil nylon. So, but it's a really good tent. I have figured out the best pitches for both of these, the easiest way. And let me describe that. For the X-Mid, I found a video that really worked well, where you stake down one corner. Like I started with this corner. That was the first peg I put in. And then the second peg was all the way across on the other side diagonally, this corner. And the advantage of that was it automatically sets up a 45-degree angle, right? It means that the stake lines are going to be tensioned with the, the dynamics of the tent. And then I put in this corner and then the other corner and put in the poles, and I have what I think is a pretty nice pitch. This is only 4 stakes right now. There are stakes on the ends, stake out loops on the end here. And you can put a stake in the fly, and then it also has tie-outs that come from the poles. So this tent can really be battened down. I'm guessing from what I've read that the Durston's actually going to be better in bad weather than the Duplex. The Duplex tent, the best way I found to set it up is to first put in 2 stakes in the corners, 1 and 2, and then put a pole in on the opposite side. So I did those 2 corners first, and then I put in this pole, and then I did these 2 stakes, and then I did the second pole and staked it out. And this gets me a nice taut pitch every single time, really simple. And I've not needed to even come back and retighten some of the lines. So now I have them. And then I added the pull-outs. They give more headspace inside. So the best way to do this, there's 2 ways to get the maximum amount of headroom. And one is to have a stick on this line that would push it up and lift it away. And the other is to use the there's a kit. It's a freestanding pole kit that you can use with this tent to make it a freestanding tent. So I may get that, I'm not sure yet. Anyway, I'm looking at these 2 tents as a way to hike the about 1,600 miles of the PCT this year, and they're both in contention. So let's take a look at the insides. Okay, now as far as the interior, let's start with the Duplex. What I've done is put in a Thermarest X-Lite pad, size large. It is 6.5 feet long, and I have a Trailheads quilt rated 0 degrees on it, so it's got a lot of loft. So this will be a good test of the amount of space inside of each of these tents. Now, as you can see, one of the things about the Duplex that I do not like is this rainbow door. To get in and out of the tent, you have to fully open up the entire door, and if it's buggy outside, bugs are going to come swarming in. The netting falls to the floor, to the ground, so you got to be careful getting in and out so you don't tear it, get a bunch of mud on it and stuff like that. Probably my biggest beef against this tent, actually. But anyway, I'm 6 foot tall, and I'm going to get in here and try it out. Okay, I'm now inside the duplex. You can see I've got, you know, enough foot room. I'm on an X-Light pad. It's 2.5 inches tall, but if I'm laying straight across, I still have good headroom. But it's really important in this tent to have these midpoints tied out. I think it's almost worth bringing, you know, fine sticks or something to prop this up, or use the flex kit, which will raise it, because otherwise the DCF actually gets pretty close to your head. And these, if you're over, I'm gonna say especially, you know, once you've got a pillow on and all of that, my head would probably be here. There's enough if it's pulled taut, but it could be a little tight. But the nice thing about the duplex is, if I can do this, you can go at an angle, which maybe buys you a little bit more room, but the walls do come down. So as it is, you know, I'm touching here, and if there's condensation, it's gonna be close. But I've had this in some wet weather, and it's actually done okay. So I like that about this tent. Some other things about the duplex. Those of you that already have it already know this. Stupid rainbow door. I do not understand why they do that. But the pole is right in the middle of the doorway. It has clips instead of a zipper, which has both pluses and minuses. The minus is that it's probably, you know, it doesn't add rigidity to the tent. And because one side overlaps the other side, you really need to be mindful of making sure that you put the windward side, you know, there's one side that's better to put into the wind so that the wind doesn't get scooped up by this gap. But it's one less thing to break, so that's a plus, and it's also less weight. What else can I say about this tent? Oh, it's a DCF floor, which is big debate on whether, you know, which is better, DCF floor versus the nylon approach that the Durston takes, the X-Mid 1 Pro. I'm kind of mixed on that, so I'm going to hold off on that, but I think Dan knows what he's talking about, so he definitely did his research, so I'm going to say that either is probably good. But I've had this floor on some pretty, you know, puncture-y type stuff, and it didn't get punctured, so that was pretty cool. The material's translucent, comes with the territory. This one has a somewhat higher bathtub floor than the X-Mid. You can use these things. One of the problems I've had with this is getting this to come in so that the water can go down the side. It's actually kind of a pain in the butt. I have yet to get that dialed in well, because you've got this gap, and the theory is that the water rolls down the DCF, goes out through this gap all the way around. But if you've got, like, see, this isn't perfectly pitched, and so moisture would theoretically probably come into the tent. So, but it's a, you know, it's 19.4 ounces. It can sleep 2 people. I ran into 2 guys on the Pacific Crest Trail that were both around 6'3", 6'4", and they were using one duplex, and they seemed to be pretty happy with it. And I also ran into several, you know, duals, 2 people hiking together, often mom and a daughter, and they had tons of room in it for 2 people. And it has a pretty decent size vestibule. It's high, you know, this is just a standard pitch, and that's how much ground room I've got. Probably 9-10 inches right there, so that helps I get ventilation. So that's it for the duplex. Yeah, good tent. Definitely was going to be the one I was going to use on the PCT this year, but now I have the X-Mid, so let's take a look at it. Oh, one thing I wanted to add is and something I really like in a tent. See all the space in here? However I set up in the duplex, there's tons of room for all my gear. Even my pack if I want to bring it in. And I like to spread stuff out. I'll have a place to put my tomorrow morning's clothes, another place to put my sleep stuff, another place to put my meds, because I'm glaucoma and I need to do eye drops in the morning, and I like to have my electronics inside. So there's a lot of stuff that I bring inside the tent, and the duplex has a lot of room for that. That's a really big plus in my book. And I also had a Skyscape, actually still have a Skyscape Trekker, which is it's a hybrid tent made of sil poly. And it's pretty cool because it's got a lot of room inside too. So I can bring everything inside other than my pack. Anyway, that's it for the duplex. Let's go look at the X-Mid. All right, here's the X-Mid. I added tryouts to the Vestibules, stakeouts, which is really cool. And actually, a really cool thing about this is, as you can see, the trekking pole is not in the way of the door. And there's tons of space here. I'll get my pack. As you can see, this is the perfect place to stuff my pack, right? That's a Hyperlight Mountain Gear North Rim pack. It's a 3400. I know a lot of people have the Southwest, and that would be the same pack. This is just beefier, but look at that, totally out of the way. And here is the same pad and sleeping quilt set up inside the X-Mid. So let's go inside and see what that's like. All right, I'm now inside the X-Mid. Again, I'm 6 foot tall, and I've got a lot of room in here. As you can see, I've got room. This is the mummy style pad. I could store stuff there and there. The walls are steep, so it makes it easy to not be hitting my head on wet walls, right? And I've got room back here for stuff. There's a little bit of room on the sides. So one of the reasons I actually had the version 1 of the X-Mid 1, and my biggest complaint about it was it was too large of a footprint for too small of an inner tent. And so I sold it, and I've kind of been waiting to see what he was going to do with this Pro version. And what he did was he added 4 inches in width. I believe it was 4, it might be 6. And he added a little bit in length. At the same time, he reduced the footprint size. So bigger inner tent, smaller footprint, which to me, he's found the sweet spot. And because it's single wall, there's none of the netting coming in like it does on the double wall. So it just feels more spacious. And amazingly, getting up and down, I don't hit my head on anything. So I think it's really gonna work well. I think he hit the sweet spot. So now I look outside, you can see there's my pack. I can put my shoes here. Some other cool things, the doors, one-hand operation, the T thing. You don't have to open up the whole freaking door like you do on the duplex to get in and out. You can just, you just do this. And then the zipper adds rigidity, and it's held on by a magnet, so you just pull it, right? And you push it down. Remember, I'm sitting in my sleeping bag doing this. So now I've battened down the hatches, closed up the doors, and even though the bathtub floor isn't as high as it is in the duplex, it's actually, because there's more space, it seems, or at least because the fly comes lower to the ground, I don't think splashback's going to be an issue. Got this whole vestibule over here again, single-handed operation. You know, I mean, look at all that space. This is beautiful. He's got 2 pockets in here. One right here and one right here. The material is translucent, which pretty much comes with the territory in these DCF tents. There's probably thicker stuff, but then you start losing the weight gain, or the weight advantage as you go with heavier materials. And he went with a sill nylon floor. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. He says, and I believe him, that it packs smaller because of that. Because DCF doesn't like to get munched up as much. But with this combination of the sill poly floor or sill nylon, I'm not sure which it is, with the sill DCF fly, that's an advantage. And then he's got these vents at each pole, right? So you can see out there, beautiful ventilation on top where you need it. This tent just really hits all the sweet spots. I still need to get my pitch a little better because these should be standing up straight. But, you know, this is only my second pitch and it's a lot better than my first one. What else can I say about this tent? I just like it. Oh, okay, so that's it for the interior. But I'm 6 foot, and I think somebody that's 6'4", 6'5", would find they'd have all the room they need. And you could stick a rectangular pad in here that's 26 inches wide and still have tons of room. Okay, one more thing to note. It's very easy to put up both doors in this. Easier than the duplex. And now I've got tons of ventilation. So if it's a warm day, not raining, or heck, maybe even if it is raining, as long as it's light, you can open up these doors and have wonderful cross ventilation. That is very cool. All right. Take 2. Take 2. I forgot to hit the now we're recording button. Okay. So here's my take. This is the duplex, okay? The duplex has been the go-to tent for ultralight hikers for a while. Its advantages are it has more space inside. It's a double tent. It does set up easily, although they both set up easily. It has a DCF floor, which, in my experience, I've actually sat on some like pointy things and it's not punctured it. If it is punctured, it repairs really easily with DCF tape and is waterproof. It has a higher bathtub floor, comes up I think 8 inches. It's pretty easy to set up. The way I like to set it up is I'll stake out 2 corners, like that corner and then this corner, and then I'll put up this pole and stake it out, and then I'll put in stakes for this corner and that corner, and then I'll put in this pole and pull it taut, this pole right here, and then I'll put in that stake and then that stake, and I get a good pitch every single time I do that. And then I stake out these sides because it really needs that. And what's really good is to get a stick so you pull these out like this. The duplex has the clip system on the doors, which is one less thing to go wrong, but they're a little bit more finicky. So now we're getting into stuff I don't like about the duplex. I've never been able to get the gap right on these, you know, these things. Supposedly the moisture comes down and goes out through the netting, but I always end up with the floor touching that So I still got to work on that. And my biggest grief, and my friend is saying I need to lighten up on it, but I'm going to just say it. These rainbow doors are just stupid. They're just not functional. You got to open up the whole thing to get in and out. And then all of a sudden the mosquitoes come flying in and the door drops down to the ground and dirt gets in it when you get in and out. So you got to be like extra special, careful with it. So big negative on the duplex. Almost enough reason to sell it to me. The DCF floor I mentioned is really good because it's pretty easy to patch and it doesn't absorb any water. The downside is that it doesn't fold up as tightly as the sill nylon floor, sill poly floor in the Durston. You got a lot of guy lines on this tent, so you actually do end up needing a bigger footprint than you do with the Durston. And here's the clip system on the duplex. And you do have to make sure you get the door in the right direction because it overlaps. And if you had the wind coming in from this side, it would blow this open and come in. So you got to make sure the wind's coming from the label side. You pitch it with the labels into the wind. So, but really good tent, gotta admit. All right, now the Durston. And also you can see I added these stakeouts to the vestibule doors, which is great. And I've got the pack stowed right in there, totally out of the way. So here's what's cool on the Durston. It only really takes 4 stakes to set it up. If you add 6, 1 for each vestibule door, it even adds more rigidity. You have 2 nice vestibules. These magnetic closures on the doors are sweet versus those sort of pass a button through and do it right things on that duplex. This can be done one-handed really easily. Duplex, nah, you're gonna need 2. The interior of this tent, even though it's not as wide, it's wide enough and it's a bit longer, and the usable space at the head and foot end, there's actually more space in there. And I really feel like my quilt is less likely, or in my head is less likely to hit the walls. It's a really big deal. The fly comes lower to the ground. I think this tent is definitely more wind resistant, weather resistant out of the box. I hear that the duplex can be made stronger by adding the flex kit to it and using the poles, but you know, there's no guy lines on this tent unless you add them to the tie-outs up here, which I may do, but I have vision issues and I trip over guy lines all the time. So the idea of having a tent that doesn't require guy lines is really nice to me. The DCF is good. The sill nylon floor, jury's out. I read some Reddit things, and Dan Durston's really good about responding on them. And it's his belief that the nylon floor, I forget if it's sill poly or sill nylon, is going to be more, I believe, abrasion resistant. And it also can be kind of re-laminated if you wanted to do that, you know, after a while. And the bathtub floor is not as high. It's only like 2 or 3 inches. And as you can see, mine's not even doing that. It's kind of flopping down. So it's just a matter of getting my pitch better. The one-handed zipper doors are sweet, right? Look at that. Just boom. Boom. None of that stupid rainbow door stuff. And this tent is 4 ounces lighter. Definitely requires a smaller footprint. Probably my biggest, like I mentioned, the biggest beef I had with the original version 1 of the X1 double wall, was it was a small inner tent with a big footprint. Well, this tent reduces the footprint size, enlarges the interior size and volume because it's DCF and single wall. So my take is that this is going to be my first choice tent on my PCT hiking this summer, and this will be my second choice. So Dan, you done did it. I think this is a great tent. And for those of us that were lucky enough to get in on it on this first round, good on us. Because this tent's going to be in demand, and people are going to take notice when they see it. Going to be a lot of questions. Here's another significant difference between the two is the ease of breaking down. I agree with Dan that the sill nylon floor makes the X1 a lot easier to fold up than the Duplex, and it also takes up a lot less space. You can see here that the it's probably about, I don't know, these tents are loosely packed. Actually, the Duplex is kind of tight, and this is kind of loose. So the X-Mid takes up significantly less room, both lengthwise and widthwise and density-wise, than the Duplex when packed up. So if you have a small pack and, volume is a deal, you're definitely going to come out ahead with the X-Mid Pro. So I think the floor is a win. I'm coming around to it. Just wanted to note that. And also the ease of breaking down, pulling 6 stakes and then just pulling on the tent, the peaks, and then just kind of folding it in thirds and then half and then rolling it up. It goes really fast. Duplex takes a bit more work. Both are pretty quick, but I think that the X1, the X-Mid 1, definitely wins in the breakdown time. It's fast and easy. And I like to put it in a pouch like this because then I can strap it on the outside of my pack, which is the HMG. It's got that bare strap, Y strap on top, and I can just run the loops through here on both of these and leave the tent on the outside. And then when I get to a place where I can dry it out, I don't even have to open up my pack necessarily to get to it.